Are you settled in? Well, you better be, because I'm about to drop some facts about the gold earning strategy that's responsible for a majority of my virtual wealth.
Yeah, I know, I'm rich in a video game, I'm so cool.
Okay, let's get into it. It's big brain time. I hear the term flipping items in ESO feels like a job get thrown around more often than I get thrown around in Desynced by Dragon Leaps and Cyrodiil. I think that you can tack on the phrase feels like a job to the end of any sentence about any in-game activity, to be fair, and you wouldn't technically be wrong. This subject matter is, well, subjective after all. The way that a hardcore ERPer prefers to play the game likely differs significantly from the way that a score-pushing Andy prefers to play, and before they're the same picture. That being said, I get the impression that what people are trying to say when they say that flipping in particular feels like a job is that it feels tedious and dreary, exhausting even, it takes a lot of time, it's boring. These are all sentiments that I've heard for a handful of ESO gold making methods that I've recommended on my channel. And for the most part, when someone says this to me, I can't help but think, well, if it's not fun for you, you don't have to do it. Or if that's the way you feel, then I think you might be doing something wrong. Fun fact, someone said something like that in regards to World Boss dailies, I think it was, a long while back, to which I responded with essentially what I just said, and thus the term basement YouTuber was coined. How's that for a little Arteo lore? But flipping in particular gets a lot of shit from the player base for many reasons, and I'm not even gonna delve into the whole
Flippers are exploiting PTC
debate. Let's just stick to the feels like a job argument for now. A lot of players get the impression that flipping takes a whole lot of time and yields relatively few rewards. And to be fair, there definitely are players and even content creators out there that flip pretty inefficiently, spending hours every time they play browsing guild stores and sometimes even getting hard carried by their add-ons to help them spot deals. I know of traders that will purchase items and resell them for barely more than they were originally purchased for. I've seen profit margins of sub 5%, bruh, couldn't be me. So I totally get it. If that's all I ever saw, I think I'd come to the same conclusion. Flipping. Flipping is cringe. But just like anything in this game, it is possible to be inefficient or efficient while you play ESO. And you actually have the power to decide which way you'd prefer to play. In my farming efficiency video, for example, I pick apart a common farming practice that I personally deem to be a mistake. It isn't a very efficient use of your time to explicitly farm for specific purchasable items in ESO most of the time. Instead, you're better off consulting your preferred reliable gold making method to then purchase what it is that you seek. I had a few commenters weigh in on the matter to say that while they knew that doing something such as wandering around and looting torchbug thoraxes, don't tell Miri, to sell for gold on the market was not a very efficient means to make gold, they still preferred to partake in these kinds of activities anyways because they found them to be really relaxing. I mean, shit, fair play, I can totally see where they're coming from. The same goes for flipping. If players prefer to travel from zone to zone and check out every single guild trader's stall and browse their wares in hopes that they find a good deal, that's completely valid. I'd imagine that you would get a rush of excitement if you were to find some nice item that was severely underpriced. I could see how the feeling might be reminiscent of thrifting, maybe? Not to mention the fact that it makes for a great screenshot to share with friends on Discord so that you can show off what you just got at a ridiculously low price. This practice could also allow you to spot cheap-ass items that haven't yet had a chance to get listed on TTC, which is arguably pretty big brain in of itself. If players prefer to buy chromium plating at 295k gold per unit to resell at 320k gold per unit, making a total of 2.6 gold per unit after taxes, then all the power to them. These kinds of players tend to accumulate insane sales numbers, which is seen as a pretty huge flex in the trading community, not to mention the fact that all of the tax collected from those sales really helps out the guild. But if both of these scenarios are kind of making you fall asleep, it's likely because they're not entirely efficient. They do require a fair amount of time, sometimes even a fair amount of gold, and I get that that isn't for everyone. However, it is entirely possible to be efficient when you flip items for profit. I myself dedicate roughly 15 minutes every day that I play ESO, purchasing items and relisting them on my traders for prices that I know will sell. For reference, I make about 10 million gold in not sales, but profit every week across my 4 trading guilds. 15 minutes ain't bad, okay? It takes 15 minutes to do a lot of other gold making strategies, like doing writs on a few characters, or farming resources, or finding treasure map chests for motif leads. And my 15 minutes per play session makes me a whole lot more than a lot of other gold farming methods. So, what's the trick? How is it taking me so little time to make all of this gold from flipping? Well, I'll explain it to you. My mum was never much of a shopper. Anytime she needed a new pair of shoes for the gym or a new coat for the winter, she'd look these things up online first, find out exactly which store sold the exact item that she was looking for, then she'd go to that store, ask an associate for that item, try it on, buy it, and then dip out of there, in and out, in a flash. Now that's not how I prefer to shop IRL, but I definitely take after her when it comes to doing a little shopping, just in ESO. When it comes to flipping in ESO, I already know what I'm looking to buy. The items that I'm looking to buy are ones that are usually in the midst of experiencing an increase in their prices. And this could be for a multitude of reasons, which I'll explain in the next chapter. Since I already know what I'm looking to buy, all I have to do is utilize TTC to locate where exactly I have to go to buy it. And before any of you console enjoyers drop a diss track in my comments, I understand that you cannot utilize TTC because no add-ons, but you can still exercise this practice, albeit in a slightly less efficient manner, by utilizing the game's built-in search system on the guild trader menus. Heck, even I make use of this myself whenever I go out of my way to some trader in the middle of nowhere to grab an underpriced item that I saw on TTC. I mean, I'm there anyways, I may as well browse all of the other items that I'm currently flipping in case there are any cheap listings for those, right? But anyways, this practice saves me a lot of time as it takes hardly any of it to acquire a whole bunch of items that I can then relist for more gold than I purchased them for. Oh, but before we move on, that reminded me, I should mention that it's generally a good practice to do the following. If ever you find yourself going way out of the way to pick up a cheap item that you saw on TTC that's listed on some trader, I highly advise that you do a quick browse all search while you're there. Oftentimes, I find that the players that list whatever cheap-ass item caught my attention on TTC and brought me to this particular trader stall in the first place also tend to list other items for significantly below their market value. I find this to be especially the case with materials and motifs. I recognize certain players by their @names because of how many times I've stopped by their traders to buy the same damn handful of items from them. If you book it to a trader that has big Luigis listed for 30% below market value, there's a reasonable chance that the seller of that cheap butt floss has also listed a bunch of other cheaper agents. You picking up what I'm putting down? Anyways, maybe try this out the next time you're out flipping if you don't mind spending a few more moments at the trader. You just might luck out. As I mentioned, the items that I purchase to flip are ones that are currently experiencing a shift in price. This is how I'm able to make so much gold from them. I can buy them for quite low prices and quite readily as well, since the majority of players take a while to realize that their items are worth so much more because they rely too much on what their trading add-ons tell them and have not yet realized that their prices are on the move. I can then resell these items shortly afterwards or at the appropriate time for a pretty loony return on investment. So how do I know which items are going to experience an increase in price? I do this a few different ways. Allow me to speed run through them. I preach this in so many of my gold guides. If you know and understand the ways that the PvE and PvP meta shift every patch, you can prepare yourself by purchasing items that complement the build or the playstyle that is meta, or bound to become meta. For example, with the reinforcement of the viability of hybrid builds and with max resource stats being less desirable in PvP than they have been in the past, or Zorga's smoked bear haunch has soared in popularity amongst the PvP scene. This food provides players with max health, something that's much appreciated in this current burst meta, and ample resource return for both resources, something that complements hybridity. This evidently makes bear haunches a very desirable food at this current moment in time. I purchased a bunch of bear haunches and I continue to purchase cheap ones, back when they were very easy to get for around 15k per unit, or less. I now sell them in stacks of 10 for roughly 250k each. You can apply this logic to other consumables, gear sets, trait stones, and other items that might be affected by meta changes. I recommend checking out the following channels to stay on top of meta changes to help you make smarter investments. Regardless of the supply of an item, there are certain occurrences that could increase the cost of items significantly in light of a surplus of demand for it. Materials, for example, are items that are basically always experiencing a slow increase in demand despite their abundant supply, making them a great baby's first flip opportunity. But sometimes, certain situations make the prices of certain items skyrocket. You might blink and miss the fact that Drowax is worth 7k more per unit than it was the last time you checked, or that the price of Columbine has doubled overnight. Usually, situations such as new patches accelerate the rising of the value of materials because the meta changes more frequently than the average PvPer changes their underwear, and the player base is often left scrambling to pick up materials to craft or upgrade their new meta sets every quarter. Situations such as events coming back and reintroducing items or discontinuing them is another great example of this. Same with the addition of new furnishing plans that suddenly require a style material that previously had little use. If you ride the wave and buy low then sell high, that's some easy gold in your pocket. Also, do be mindful of price increases for craftable items. If something like essence of spell power potions are on the rise, then it's likely that the reagents required to craft them are as well, and vice versa. Although, oftentimes, I'll find that one of those things, either the crafted item or the items needed to craft the item, will experience an increase in price, while the other component does not, for the first couple days anyways. This is also another great opportunity to make stonks from flipping. On the flip side, pun totally intended because this is scripted, if you ever notice that there is hardly any of a particular item readily available on the market, chances are you can charge much more per unit for that item. This is especially the case with rare motifs, style pages, and furnishing plans, as there are just so many variants of each of these categories of items. So it's not too uncommon to look up the price of a motif or a furnishing plan on TTC and see that there are only 2 other instances of that item on the market, or less. If you ever recognize that you have virtually no competition or very little competition when it comes to selling a specific item, you could potentially buy up a bunch of cheap instances of that item to then relist for prices that you know will sell. By being aware of meta changes as well as other little occurrences, albeit random ones or expected ones, you can make a better decision when it comes to creating that shopping list of items that you're looking to buy with the intention of flipping. By having that shopping list and using resources such as TTC or the built-in guild store search tool, you reduce the amount of time that it takes to locate flippable items, thus making flipping in ESO a gold-making method that has the potential to be one of the fastest and the most efficient ways to make gold in the game. That's why I personally find this whole feels like a job narrative so hilariously ironic. Flipping items in ESO is a gold-making method that is arguably the least like a job out there because of how easy peasy it is and how little time it takes. I swear to God, players will be like, flipping items is cringe, bro, that shit is like a job, and then grind antiquities for 3 hours straight and make like 50k SMH my head. Anyways, I'm not trying to entirely change your mind on flipping. If you already know that you hate that shit, then well, I'm surprised you're even watching this video, but I'm not gonna bother to try to make you see otherwise. Again, we all have very different tastes when we play ESO, but if you were on the fence about flipping, or were curious or interested in getting into flipping, but perhaps dissuaded by the prospect of it feeling like a job, then I hope I was able to clarify some things for you. You don't need a whole lot of gold to get started on flipping, or even a whole lot of time. You just need the right amount of knowledge to be able to spot these opportunities. And sometimes those opportunities fall right into your lap unintentionally. like if you ever notice that there's hardly any of one particular item on the market per se. You can also spot these opportunities by engaging with our community on Discord. I'll leave an invite link in the description. There are a lot of seasoned traders in the TTS Discord that are willing to help out newer traders, so feel free to join to seek help for all of your trading needs and chill with a pretty sweet ESO community while you're at it. And that's all for this video. I hope that what was discussed today helped you in some capacity. And on that note, I'd like to thank my YouTube members for making content like this possible, and of course, all of you for watching. I will see ya in the next one. Cheers.